A woman is found dead in her bedroom. The scene is disturbingly normal. But look closer. The wall clock behind her is frozen, its hands pointing to 3:17 a.m. Here's the problem. The medical examiner confirms she died at 4:40 a.m. So how did the clock stop over an hour asterisk before asterisk she was killed? Who stopped it and why? This isn't just a murder, it's a puzzle, and a clock is the key. Detectives arrive at a pristine, almost sterile bedroom. There are no signs of a struggle, no forced entry. The victim's expensive jewelry sits untouched on her dresser, but her phone is missing. The only thing out of place is that silent wall clock stuck at 3:17 a.m. It feels deliberate, like a message left by the killer. In a room with no other obvious clues, this stopped clock becomes the central focus of the entire investigation. It's the first piece of a very dark and twisted puzzle. The team starts a meticulous search. A window is cracked open just enough for someone to slip through. Outside, under the window, they find footprints in the soft soil. But inside, the floor is clean as if the intruder wiped their tracks. A faint, lingering smell of cigarette smoke hangs in the air, even though the victim was a known non-smoker. Then, a sharp-eyed officer spots it, a tiny shred of black fabric caught on the window latch. Small clues, but they paint a picture of a careful, methodical killer. The clock, however, remains the loudest clue in the silent room. Next, detectives interview the neighbors. One reports seeing an unfamiliar car idling on the street for about 10 minutes right around 3 a.m. Another recalls seeing a figure in a black jacket walking near the victim's house around the same time. But the most unsettling detail? No one heard anything. No screams, no struggle, nothing. The murder was committed in absolute silence. This level of control points to a killer who was either incredibly skilled or someone the victim knew and trusted. The clock is taken to the forensics lab for analysis. The team expects a simple explanation: dead batteries, maybe a mechanical failure. But the results are chilling. The batteries are fully charged. The internal mechanism is perfect. The clock was manually stopped. Someone physically pulled the pin or turned the dial to freeze it at exactly 3:17 a.m. To make matters worse, the clock's surface has been wiped clean of all fingerprints. This confirms the detectives' growing suspicion. The killer deliberately stopped the clock to create a false timeline and lead the investigation astray, just as the false timeline threatens to derail the case. A crucial piece of modern technology changes everything. The victim was wearing a smartwatch. When forensics technicians extract its data, they find a complete digital timeline of her final moments. The watch recorded a steady heart rate all night until it abruptly stopped at exactly 4:40 a.m. This is the undisputed time of death. The clock was stopped a full 1 hour and 23 minutes before the murder. This means the killer didn't just enter once. They were in the house at 3:17 a.m., left, and then came back later to commit the crime. The case just got a lot more complex. With this new timeline, the detectives build their list of suspects. 3 people stand out. First, the ex-husband. He has a history of jealousy and his alibi for the night feels too perfect, almost rehearsed. Second, the business partner. The victim was in a bitter financial dispute with him. He claims he was out of town, but detectives can find his name on any flight manifests or see him on airport security cameras. Third, a neighbor. He was the last person seen talking to her, and, most importantly, he smokes the same rare brand of cigarettes detected at the crime scene. Each has a motive, but their stories are full of holes. The investigation needed a breakthrough, and it came from an unexpected source, an old, low-resolution CCTV camera from a business down the street. The footage is grainy, but it's clear enough. At 3:15 a.m., a figure wearing a dark jacket is seen walking toward the victim's house and slipping through the side yard. At 3:19 a.m., the same figure leaves in a hurry. This perfectly aligns with the time the clock was stopped. The killer went in just to create the alibi, but the camera kept rolling. At 4:38 a.m., the same figure returns. This time, they stay much longer, leaving just after the smartwatch recorded the victim's death. The two-trip theory is now a proven fact. Now that they have a timeline, Detectives dig into the victim's digital life for a motive. They find it in her email drafts. The night she died, she had written a message to her business partner accusing him of embezzling funds from their company. She told him she had proof and was going to the police the next morning. Suddenly, his out-of-town alibi doesn't just look weak, it looks like a deliberate lie. He had the strongest motive of all, to silence her before she could expose him. The detectives now have a prime suspect and a clear reason for the murder. The pieces are all falling into place. The detectives re-examine the tiny piece of black fabric found on the window latch. The lab runs a detailed analysis, and it's a perfect match, not just to a generic black jacket, but to the specific material used for the inner pocket lining of a limited edition blazer, the exact kind the business partner was seen wearing a week earlier. Then came the final nail in the coffin. Investigators get a warrant for his GPS data. His car wasn't on the way to the airport. It was parked just 200 meters from the victim's house, hidden in a dark alley, at both 3 a.m. and again at 4:30 a.m. He never left town. He lied about everything. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, the GPS data, the fabric match, the CCTV footage, the business partner's composure shatters. He confesses to the entire plan. He admitted he went in the first time, around 3:15 a.m., solely to stop the clock. He thought creating a false time of death would give him a solid alibi. Sending police on a wild goose chase, he then returned later to commit the murder, believing he had outsmarted everyone. But he never accounted for the victim's smartwatch, that one piece of technology. Silently recording her heart rate unraveled his intricate plot and exposed him as the killer. He was arrested for murder and for tampering with a crime scene. His clever plan ultimately destroyed by a clock that never tick-tocked, and a watch that recorded everything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more true crime mysteries.